Welcome everybody to another episode of Tales from the Core. As always, your host, Dirty Mike Francis. We got Sir Neil here. He made it, man. That's commitment. In South, well, you're not in South Florida, but you're in Florida. It's warm.
Yeah.
And got some internet problems, but hey, improvise, adapt, and overcome, baby.
That's right. That's right. I actually got a man out here outside the window. He's wanting to talk to me a little bit, and
If somebody
right,
starts washing your windows, just ignore it.
right when it happens, man. Right when we go hit
Yeah.
hit the record button, right?
And then, as everyone can see here, man, we're super fortunate to have Dave Holland, who's it's Sunday there in Australia, fellow Marine, expert on Guadalcanal, joining us. Tales from the Core boys. We got 3-4J guys hanging out today.
I'm happy to be here. I see your buddy there.
Yeah,
But he's
a surprise
co-host.
guest.
Yeah, surprise guest. Bring him in. Thanks for inviting me on, and I'm happy to be here and meet you guys and talk about Guadalcanal. Yeah, it's 06 on a cold Canberra morning here, so but I'm ready to rock.
Well, and I always love giving credit where credit's due and the shout outs. So it's so funny, even though we know a number of the same people, Scott Gibson, Scott Freund, Henry Sledge, all those guys, Taco, the guys that put us in touch, Lars McKee, Nick DeVoe from the Logbook Project. And the whole reason I even know who those guys are is because of a shout out to our guy, Cliff. When we were in St. Lucia, he was our guide. Saw the tattoo, brought up World War II in St. Lucia, and which led to me, finding Nick and Lars, and they came on, and that was just an incredible episode as well. And now here we are getting ready to talk Guadalcanal, and I made sure I rocked the Chesty. I got the Chesty shirt on today.
Oh, cool.
So and here hopefully soon, I actually got to talk with John Basilone's niece yesterday. She'll be joining us here in the future and shipping us off a little bobblehead. They make bobbleheads of John Basilone. So
wow.
For people that Brent, I asked her, I said, I'm like, how do you know Brent Pendleton? And she's like, he orders the bobbleheads. And I'm like, what bobblehead? She's like, I sell bobbleheads on Etsy. So, we'll post that somewhere for anybody that wants a Basilone bobblehead. You can get them from his niece, man. Like, how freaking cool is that? Like, super cool. So with that said, Dave, we always love to, when we have especially fellow Marines on, is just kind of get a little bit about your journey to the Marine Corps, what led you, a little bit of your service, and then we're always down for a really good boot camp story, like anything crazy that happened at the funniest place you're not allowed to laugh.
Okay. Well, yeah, actually, and you'll hear my accent, so try not to laugh too much. One guy told me, he said, I don't know if you're from Alabama or you're from Adelaide. So it's a hybrid bastard mixed accent. So yeah, originally I was from Alabama. So yeah, growing up in rural Alabama, up in the foothills of the Appalachians, I decided to join the Marine Corps at a late age of 6. So at 6 years old, I knew I was going in the Marines. I always had an interest in the military history. My grandmother taught me how to read really when I was about 5 or 6. First book was a military book, and the seed was planted. So my whole, I guess, growing up, it was all about Marines. At one stage, I was thinking about Army. At one stage, I actually thought about flying an airplane when Baa Black Sheep came out in the 70s.
Okay.
And I said, I'm going to be a fighter pilot, but I had to start wearing glasses a bit, and so I didn't do that. So yeah, it was always in the Marines. So 17, delayed entry program. I signed up a year before. My one parent signed for me, and then I was going to go to Parris Island. So I graduated in June in Piedmont, Alabama, and then instead of going straight to Parris Island in June, I said, well, I'll delay it to about August. So I didn't want to be in Parris Island in June, July, and August. So I got the best of both worlds. It was real hot when I got there in August, but it cooled down. Graduated 1 November. Halloween was the night before. Anyway, graduated there. And I initially signed up for the barracks sea duty program they had at the time. So it was infantry, obviously, but guaranteed barracks sea duty. So I didn't know which one I would get. So after I went to the School of Infantry at Geiger, at that stage, there was no C detachments going. So at that, I think you could only go on a battleship. No, sorry, it was carriers. The only place that had nukes. So that was obviously the Barrack Sea duty program is guarding nukes. That was what
Okay.
they did. You guarded special weapons or nuclear weapons. So there was no, sorry, there was no spots for sea duty. So I went to barracks duty. So I picked up Sigonella, Italy, which the Naval Air Station is Sigonella, Italy, Sicily was that. So I was there for about a year and a half. And when I was there, we had billets for scout snipers. Just some of the roles we had to do there in these special weapons. So as a PFC, I don't know, as a PFC, I just turned Lance Corporal, I think, or in between. It was a hard slog. They sent me to Geiger, the Scout Sniper School. And that was hard because you can imagine just the land navigation skills, for example, that you gain in the School of Infantry isn't that much. You got a basic grounding. All of a sudden, you throw straight into Scout Sniper School, and it was hard. And I passed. And they sent me back, obviously, to the barracks duty. And then rotated to the fleet, went to 1-5. And that was in Stapleton 1-5 there, and I did a number of deployments. And then I decided to go on MSG duty, so Marine Security Guard duty, guarding embassies. And I was picked, volunteered, successfully made it through the program at Quantico. My first duty station was Havana, Cuba. So I must have did something very good or very bad in MSG school. So I went to Havana. And Havana, not Guantanamo Bay. I wish, because you could have got fresh fruits and vegetables there. But they sent me in the heart of Indian country, so to speak. So I was, myself and what was the thing, an attachment of about 8 of us in the old U.S. Embassy building, U.S. entrance sections. So after that, then because I did a bad post, you get to do a good post. So coming out of Havana, they say you can really go anywhere you want in the world. So I was going where they speak English, and they're going where I could speak to a woman, because you had to be single in the program. And I'm definitely.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, you had to be single unless you were detachment commander. Then you could be married. But all the watch standards, as they called us, had to be single. And you signed a waiver to remain to be single. And if you married, you get in UC and J. It boots you out.
Oh, wow.
And then I said, well, they said you get 5 choices. I think of the 175 posts, maybe half was coming up at the time. And I said, well, they said, you're going to get your first pick really out of Havana, but pick 5. So I said, okay, where can I pick? I looked, the first one, it said Canberra, Australia. That's number 1. Australia, hell yeah. Young single Marine, Australia, number 1. 2, Wellington, New Zealand. Yep, I'm definitely going there. 3, Dublin, Ireland. Yep, 4. I've been to Munich before. So I picked Munich, Germany, and 5 was Stockholm, Sweden. So I was going to hit the jackpot somewhere.
Yeah, anyway. You had it covered, man.
So long story short, that's why I'm in Australia today. So I met Australian ex-wife. But yeah, because the last 2 weeks of the program you can marry, so you have to go through your spouse has to go through all these background checks and everything. But as soon as you marry in country, because you work for the Department of State, they become your spouse right then. So they become your spouse, all the benefits. So you get all the upload of all your, I think it's 4,000 pounds, and then she got paid to go to the States. So I went to Lejeune was my next duty station. So I went to 1-2. I tried to go back and stay 1-2, and they said, no, you're a sergeant now. And your primary MOS is 0331, which is machine gunner, as you guys know. Maybe the audience don't know. But I said, well, I don't want to, I've never been a machine gunner. I was only in infantry school. And they said, it doesn't matter. If you're a sergeant, we're going to throw you in the heavy guns. So I went to a CAP platoon, heavy guns. Now became basically platoon sergeant of heavy guns. And then at that stage, I'd been in 8 years, from 85 to 93. I said, well, it's time to probably go back to Australia. Well, no, sorry. It's time to get out, because, I was young and in love, and I'd done the things I wanted to do. So it was time to next chapter of my life. So I went back to the place I grew up in Alabama, and I became a cop for 2 years. And then we decided to go back to Australia. So I loved Australia, and my wife was missing her family, and I thought, yeah, it's a great place. And yeah, I came back here in '95, and I've been here ever since.
So when did I guess let's get into the expertise and just the knowledge and digging into Guadalcanal. When did that start to kind of take its place with you within your life?
Yeah, so obviously, like I said before, I was a military history nut, so I knew about Guadalcanal. I'd read about it. I mean, I hadn't done a deep dive into it, but I knew all about it. And then obviously, going in the Marine Corps, as we know, they drill history into you left and right. And obviously, one of the things, and you guys would have remembered in boot camp, Guadalcanal would have popped up. And
First one.
Yeah. Guadalcanal. Then you hear about Guadalcanal and how the Navy abandoned us, and Puller, and the legends, and you got Basilone, and Page, and all the stuff, and hopefully we'll talk about today. And that was drilled into you. And then I was what my commander said, a prestigious reader, frivolous or not frivolous. I forgot what he said. Prodigious reader of the commandant's military, the recommended reading list you have to do. I don't know if you still have to do it.
Oh yeah.
So I used to accumulate all kinds of those books, and Sam Griffin's Guadalcanal was on it. So I had a good understanding of Guadalcanal. I had a good background. And then coming to Australia, I was in the state police, and then I went to the federal police, Australian Federal Police. So I'm retired now. They had a program, the Australian Federal Police, where they'd rotate. At that stage, was peacekeeping duties and operational peacekeeping duties in the Solomon Islands, because in 2003 they had a bit of a, I wouldn't say civil war, but there was unrest there. So the Australians sent a contingent in New Zealand and some participating Pacific Island nations, based as peacekeepers. So we had a contingent running in that area and maintained it. So I said, well, I'm definitely getting into that. One, I want to obviously go into operational deployment, plus two, it's Guadalcanal, kill two birds with one stone. So my first deployment was in 2009. I went for 4 months. At that stage, it was enough to kind of wet the whistle, to learn to walk the ground a bit, because I would do it on my spare time, and I was starting to take tours around, and the police and the military over there, because the police basically was embedded in the military, Australian Defence Forces. So we worked together, and in our spare times, I would run talks, and I would always come to like the subject matter expert over there. But I thought I knew a bit, and I started learning a bit after 4 months. But when I was over there, I met a guy called John Ennis, and John Ennis was an expat Australian. And John had lived there for, I think, overall 20 years. He was a computer guy. But what John did, John had an interest in it. He didn't have a military background, but he had an interest in the Guadalcanal Campaign. And John would run tours. And the biggest thing that John benefited from, a lot of these vets would come back, and John would take them on one-on-one personal tours. And they would talk John through their experiences. And they would actually, in some places, and I'm not kidding, they'd walk and they'd show the exact foxhole they were in. It was at the Well Preserve of Southern Battlefield. Then John would go, kind of paint them a picture. As you guys know, I mean, from a private's point of view, you only see your little world, and you know what the hell's going on in the bigger picture. Hell, you know what's going on probably outside your company.
Right.
You know. And these guys, once they get there, they go, well, I don't know where, and John will go, this is this, this is this. And they go, okay. And they start, you connect, and they bring it down. They go, okay, well, that's my foxhole. And he had not just one occasion, a number of occasions. Or that's the ditch. See that ditch there? Yeah, well, that's the ditch. That one guy told me, told John, he says, well, when we landed, I was a far guy to the far left, and there was a small stream beside me. And they were talking. John said, stand by. Come on, walk with me. They walked down to this little shit ditch, John called, and there it was. And he goes, there's your ditch. And he goes, the guy started crying.
God.
But, anyway, it's just emotion, as you guys know. It brought them back, reliving those the memories. So I walked around with John one-on-one for a while there, because he came back on a trip. He'd retired there, and he came back. Me and him spent like almost 2 weeks together, just and walking the battlefield, and he was showing me some stuff. And then in 2010 and 11, I did short operational deployments because at that stage I was in like a full-time tactical team, the national tactical team for the AFP. So we'd come back and we'd do short deployments, doing jobs here and there. And then I hit the kind of the jackpot. At that stage in 2018, it had evolved from a peacekeeping role, the ADF, the Defense Forces had left, and became an advisory role. So there's only a small contingent of us. And I was picked in 2018 to 2020 to go there for 2 years to be an advisor to the Royal Solomon Island Police Force. And my counterpart was the guy that ran the whole city and the police chief of the whole city. So, I had my own troopy, Toyota troopy. I had basically free reign. My job was to, advise, but also I had a great commander over there, and he goes, "You lead all the VIP tours, for Guadalcanal." I met the prime, I took the Prime Minister of Australia around, the U.S. Secretary or Undersecretary of Defense, and all these generals and stuff. But that was when I really had to deep dive into Guadalcanal. So what I would do, I'd go, okay, I'd read something, I'd go, let's just see. Let's just really see. And I'd walk the ground. And I concentrate on the large engagements, but all these smaller engagements. And as you know, with your military training and your background, if the ground hasn't changed, and the ground really hadn't changed in 80 years. So if you look at something, you go, well, if I'm going to put a machine gun here in 1942, I'm looking at the terrain, the tactics really hadn't changed. It'd be the same in 2022. And you read something, you can tell I always tell when an author has never been to Guadalcanal, or maybe been to Guadalcanal 1 week or 2 weeks, and they haven't really walked the ground, or they looked at a hill from a map or a photo, and you go, oh, no, that can't be. And because of that, it gave me a good, I guess, background, a good appreciation of what these guys went through, or what, when they were attacking, defending, moving, obstacles, things like that. And I could read the ground and work things out. And I go, well, that couldn't happen that way. And then my background of almost 30 years of investigating training, being that's investigator. Now I'm retired. I'm still got a job, and I'm an investigator for the state government now. But I look at it like a criminal brief of evidence when I'm putting facts together. Okay, I got a witness statement here. That's good. But, I could put all three of us in a room, something happens, and we get three different accounts.
Oh, yeah.
And we could take it the next day and, much less.
Still be different.
Trying to do it 40 years from now, 30 years from now. And, you guys say, when were you in Iraq? 20 years ago? 15, 20, 30?
Yeah.
I'm
20 now.
Yeah. So just imagine another 10 or 15 years from now, or 20 years from now, someone goes back and go, okay, what happened? Yeah, it's going to be a bit foggy. And plus, also, as we know, with stress and time slows up, time speeds up, and it's all these different factors. And then you got to take that. Then you take the official reports. Then I crack into the Japanese records, and you can just go put them all together, and it's like a brief of evidence. And what I tried to do, any piece of information I put out there, I try to support it. And if I can't support it, I really won't use it.
Right.
I can't, corroborate it or support it. And I try to go on a balance of probability and the weight of my evidence, so to speak. But yeah. So that's how I got an interest in Guadalcanal. And then when I left in 2020, I'd established a Facebook and a YouTube page where I walked the battlefield. My intent was to take me and the viewer on a battlefield. Just someone said one time, my channel is like history with no frills. And I say, yeah, that's what you get, no frills. You get no bells or whistles. You get nothing like that. The main reason, because I'm shit with technology. That's probably why. But it sounds good. I mean, if you want like entertainment from my videos, it's not, unless you really get off on seeing a guy walking through the jungle with someone else. But if you really want to know about that battlefield, you walk with me and then I'll take you through. But a spinoff from that was my Facebook page. And my wife actually told me, she goes, do this Facebook page. I said, well, I don't have time for a Facebook page. I want to do YouTube. But now it's kind of flipped, where I spend a lot of time on my Facebook page, which has got a lot of traction. I think I've 32,000 followers, and I'm on it every day. I think I post once, at least, or twice a day. I know, and I'm very interactive with the people. But because of that, it's really built my knowledge of Guadalcanal, and I've gained all these resources. And when Mr. Anderson, when John passed away, his family let me be the caretaker. He had a private collection, a large private collection of Guadalcanal material, a lot of firsthand reports, accounts that he collected over the years. So I inherited it. I don't say I have it. I inherited the caretaker. I'm the caretaker of his collection. So I went through that, and then I'm always accumulating Guadalcanal material. I mean, I've got these are all Guadalcanal books. So I've got 104.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
I've got 104. It goes that way. I let my kids have about that much. No, I think one shelf for books. I told them I'd buy them more books, but they look at their iPads. But yeah, but I'm really maintaining a focus on Guadalcanal. And then now that people just reach out to me, and I got authors, I've got universities, got people to reach out to me all the time to provide them information and to assist them. So I'm definitely a Guadalcanal geek.
Well, and that's the funny thing is, like, you talked about being shit with technology. I just got a new camera yesterday. I'm like, dude, we're getting Dave on here. We're real now. Like, we gotta, I gotta up the tech a little bit. I did the intro video. I'm super
cool. I was motivated,
that, right? Yeah, like, that's cool as hell.
Mike, you advanced. I went backwards.
Yeah. But
man.
Taco always has his cool intro video, and so I'm like, man, you know what? If that old man could do it, So it's the irony of it is and then Lars, man, thank God we had Lars on that podcast with him and Nick, because he was the one actually that pulled up the pictures to share the pictures. I know we're going to jump into that here next. I actually figured out how to do it, so because we don't have Lars running it for us, so we had to figure it out ourselves. But yeah, for everybody I know that you shared this, and for everybody that's out there, what we're going to do is we're going to, Dave was kind enough to send over some pictures, and we're going to pull them up and start going through some pictures. He's going to walk us through the different photographs. Some are battlefield plans, and explain that and show it to everybody. But also in the comment section, feel free to answer questions. We'll pull them up, and Dave can answer them. Now's the time, right? And on his Facebook page also, that was a beautiful thing that I was going through, just reading all the comments and your replies, and sharing information with people. And it really is, you're great at engaging with your audience. It's really an awesome thing.
Thanks.
So yeah, I've got to try to figure out how to navigate both of these tabs now. So we hang with us. We'll do our best on it. Yeah, we'll pull up this one here first, which this is one of the battlefield plans that you sent over. Can you see that, Dave?
Yeah, I can see it. So basically, we can start out with Basilone. I mean, he's probably sorry, I drink my water. I've already had my coffee, so I'm ready to go. Yeah, so we'll start out with Basilone because obviously he's probably the most famous of the Guadalcanal personalities, the Marine personalities, because once again, this is a Marine show. I'm really glad to be speaking to the two other Marines, so it's good. I can't use that language, but anyway, I won't go too crazy. If I just pull me in if I get a bit up wild here, I'm thinking back with my old buddies.
I mean, I'm dirty, Mike. Dave. There's not too much that you can say.
We'll keep our clothes on for this one.
Right. Yeah. We'll keep it a little decent.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Basilone. So Guadalcanal was a who's who, you could say, of the Marine Corps at the time. I mean, look at the legends, all in one division, and some were even legends when they haven't set foot on Guadalcanal. They're already a legend, mainly in the Corps, but they were the legendary status. And probably the biggest legends we have on this, well, between Puller and Basilone, we can speak to Puller next, but it'd be Basilone. So John Basilone, I've spoke about Basilone many times on several podcasts, World War II TV with Paul Woodage. If you've never seen his format, go see it. It's probably the best collection of World War II videos out there, or interviews. So it's World War II TV. So what this is a fire support plan. And for the viewers that don't know what a fire support plan is, when a unit sets up, they basically have plans of how they're going to set up their fields of fire. And generally it goes down to a section or squad, platoon, company, and all the way up. So this is an overall one. So this shows a battalion fire support plan. So basically what this depicts is a place called Coffin Corner on the southern perimeter, just east of Edson's Ridge or Bloody Ridge in the Jungle Flat. And this was the area that the 1st Battalion of 7th Marines occupied. And they'd occupied it from September all the way to October. The whole 7th Marines did. So they kept rotating in and out. They'd go do an operation, then they'd come back and they'd man these positions. So they had fortified these positions for a good 6 weeks. So 1-7 had moved back in about 4 or 5 days before this to occupy these bunkers. And these are all bunkers. So coconut log covered bunkers. So those lines you see are, each one of those is a machine gun. They're not like riflemen or anything. Those are machine guns. So you're looking at a probably 2,000 yards front, and that's facing to the south. Each one of these, where it says A and C, those are companies. So the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines were in there on the night of the 24th and 25th. The 3rd Battalion, the 164th Dakota National Guard came in to assist them, and then they relieved them the next day. So that's why you see the A, C, L, K, and the top ones are the Marines, and the bottom ones are the Army that came in. So yeah, it's just a fire support plan that Basilone had, or sorry, the battalion had on the night. I don't know if the viewers can see. It has Puller's CP on there, and it has the company CPs. Battalion CPs at the bottom. That's what Puller's CP was. And Puller was about 150 yards back.
Oh, yeah.
Then Basilone. Now Basilone's position, you got trail to outpost, and that's the little trail, the one on the way I'm looking at it, on the left of the you got two there. You got a trail to outpost. The one on the left between zone 2 and zone 3.
Mm-hmm.
Now the 81s are not a hill. 81s is the pre-registered for 81 millimeter mortars. That's where they're registered in that field, or the jungle. The field's to the left. So the 81s are registered there, and the 105s and the 75 millimeters are registered a bit further out, and they're not on this chart. But that trail is called the Sector 3 Trail. Outpost is a place called Briggs Outpost. Briggs Outpost was 1,500 yards in front of the line, and that's where the Marines had about a 40-man outpost, and they'd rotate daily, mainly from Alpha, or sorry, they come Able Company. I'll get pulled up on this. They go, oh, they didn't call them Alpha Company in World War II. Okay, sorry, I got phonetic alphabet from NATO phonetic alphabet in my brain having group. If I call it Alpha, sorry, Able, Baker, Bravo, whatever. You know what I mean. I'll just.
Oh yeah.
People call me up on that. They go, oh yeah, that's not right. Okay, sorry.
That's right. They called it different things back then. We we forget sometimes.
Just
move
on.
A and B. Lima,
okay.
it's Love.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Love Company. That we should still be Love Company. Imagine that.
I'd love to be. We were both in Lima. We were in Lima Company. So
we Love Company.
Yeah.
Imagine what your first sergeant would say. Oh, we're a company of love.
That's right.
Show me some love. So they rotate, and Puller didn't want them up there. They go, look, these guys, because they're 1,500 yards out in front of the lines, and if you go on my channel, I've got Briggs Outpost. If you go up there, and tourists don't go up there because it's part of the police firing range, National Police firing range, because tourists don't have access to it. So if you go on top there today, it's a 360-degree view. And you can see everything. It's a great outpost. But unfortunately, you're going to be easily cut off. And that's what these guys, what Puller said, I don't want my guys up there. And even regiments said, we don't want them up there, but it was overruled by division. They go, we want them up there. Okay. So probably not to keep them too demotivated, they'd rotate a platoon every day. They'd go out. And that's these trails. They'd go the trail to the outpost. And that's very thick jungle. So when the Japanese attacked on the night of the 24th and 25th through that thick jungle, it broke up the unit cohesion. So they took the avenues of approach. So they basically ran straight down the trail. There's one to the far left. It says trail to the grass, kunai grass. That's a place called Coffin Corner. And that was the focus of the main attacks for 2 nights. And that's where they stacked them up. A Marine said if he was a coffin maker, he'd make a fortune there because they just stacked them up with 37 millimeter fire and machine gun fire. But with Basilone, now if you go on that, if you follow that trail down, 2 of those or 4 of those guns are Basilones in the middle. That's where Basilone's position was. Basilone wasn't on the Bloody Ridge or Edson's Ridge. Some accounts say he was on the ridge. That's entirely false. He was in that jungle flat. In fact, it was about 380, 390 yards to the east of the last spur of Edson's Ridge. Part of 1-7 was on Edson's Ridge, but Basilone was attached to C Company. Officially, he's part of D Company, and that's some other people. There's a lot of misinformation about Basilone. Some would say, no, he wasn't in C Company. He was in D Company. That's correct. D Company is the weapons company. As you guys know, weapons companies have machine guns, and in those days, too, they had heavy machine guns and mortars. Well, they get farmed out to the rifle companies. So he was in support of C Company, which is a rifle company. For the whole campaign, his platoon of heavy machine guns were attached to C Company. That's generally how they did it, and especially in his defensive position. So he was in
I
C
think
Company.
that's still how they, with the Lima Company, if we needed Mark 19s, they would attach out from weapons. So, yeah, they're still weapons company. They're just in support of Lima's effort.
Yeah, so it confuses some people sometimes. But that's what he was attached to C Company. Sometimes you'll see C Company, sometimes you'll see D Company with Basilone. But his 4 guns, so he had 2 sections. And each of heavy machine guns, the M1917 Browning water-cooled heavy machine guns. So he was he had 2 sections. So a section had 2 squads. It can get confusing to some people. A machine gun squad is one gun. Right. So by the time in this part of the campaign, instead of having their TO strength of 6 or 7 per squad, they had only three guys. That was because of attrition, sickness, wounds, deaths, and also too they had extra machine guns. So instead of these ammo carriers, take these 3 ammo carriers, bang, now you're machine gun crew. So you got extra machine guns. That's where you get your extra guys. So each machine gun squad only had about 3 guys. So he had 4 machine guns. He had 15 men, and he was in 2 bunkers. So each machine gun had 2 bunkers. And each bunker, they're about 30 yards apart from each other. And you see how this fire support plan, the guns are set up in enfilade. And as you know, machine guns can kill more people firing from an angle. And enfilade, you can kill more from the side. So, the old movies where everybody's firing from the front, that's bullshit, really.
Yeah.
And these guys had the FPLs or FP, the final protective line fire. As you guys know what that is, the mad.
Right.
Everybody and their brother fires when the enemy is right on you. Just everyone opens up. So what these guys did, they had their machine guns. They had these barbed wire aprons because the jungle was so thick. They only had about 30 feet to the barbed wire line, about 20 to 30 feet on the other side. And that's all they could see. And they did cut some firing lanes in 75 to 100 yards at angles, hoping the Japanese would take the path of least resistance and straight into the kill zone firing lanes. What they did, they had these machine guns mounted on the tripod, same as today. And they had them locked in for grazing fire. On their T&E, they locked them in. So basically, if any on the FPL, when the Japanese or enemy came to the firing barbed wire line, only thing the Marines had to do is just pull the trigger, and it fires straight down the line of the barbed wire. So you got anyone trying to crawl in, or they stopped at the barbed wire, it's going to catch them straight down. Only thing you have to do is, just it's locked in. Just pull the trigger.
Right.
He's going to kill whoever right straight in the line. And that's what they did. They stacked them up like that. So what Basilone did, and this is, like I said, there's a lot of misinformation about the Basilone. You're reading the books. I've never read there's no book out there, that, in my opinion, that portrays the actual what went down. Now, I've studied it for at least intently for like 6 years, the Basilone actions. I've walked the ground. I've been in the areas. I don't know how many times I walked that jungle. I've got his primary accounts. Once again, with my investigative training, I don't go to secondary accounts or third accounts. Go to the primary source. I've got 2 of Basilone's testimonies. One he gave to the Naval History section to a Marine lieutenant and a Marine captain. And they really, it's almost like a police interview. They really drilled down. Initially, they said, what happened? It's like a free recall. He gives a bit of information, but he doesn't get in detail. Then they start asking detailed questions. Then I've got another testimony made like a year later, and the information is basically spot on. So he hasn't changed it. Then you get some witness statements, and then you look at the primary accounts from the like the reports of operations, summary logs. You read some even the Army stuff. They had some good stuff because they occupied the area right after Basilone moved out. So because of all that, I've actually painted a good picture of what actually went down. So I wrote a article in last October's Leatherneck magazine, and I think it's a good account. But basically what happened was, so on the night of the 24th and 25th of October 1942, so Basilone and his 4 machine guns were guarding that Sector 3 trail, a primary avenue of approach. So they had a 4-foot high barbed wire apron, like in a V-shaped apron, right? 4 foot high. And that was the only thing keeping them. On the other side was thick jungle. They had about 30 feet. Basilone said he had 30 feet to the one barbed wire apron. He could see 20 or 30 feet to the other side there. That's a great photo. And that's looking from the Marines' position, not Basilone's, but who knows? I doubt it. But that's one of the bunkers in the area, and that's what they were looking through. So you can see the apron was probably a bit higher, but that's it. That's their field of fire. Some things when you read the Basilone account, most people don't know. 50 yards to his left was a 37 millimeter anti-tank gun, U.S. Marine anti-tank gun crew. I spoke to George Mason. Unfortunately, he died a couple of years ago, but he lived like in his 90s. And I spoke to George, very switched on, tough old fella. And George was 17 years old. He was the gunner in that 37 millimeter. And he talks about, and George was 17 years old at the time, and he talks about Basilone. He goes, yeah, that Italian kid. And Basilone was like almost 30 at the time. But anyway, he says, yeah, that Italian kid. But he was 50 yards away guarding that trail. Basilone's guns were supporting that 37 and zeroed in on that avenue of approach. And that 37 was firing canister rounds, which is like, I think, 128 30 caliber buckshot. It's like a giant shotgun. It decimates bodies. They used them in Alligator Creek to just wreak havoc. So anyway, you had 4 guns, 4 heavy machine guns, that 37 millimeter. At that stage, 1-7 was spread out very thin over 2,500 yards. They had about 700 guys. And if you read the unit report of operation unit report on the 22nd, I think Puller said he had 23 guys, something like that. But they were spread out. They took the gamble. They pulled 2-7. H.H. Hannikin's, another real super famous Marine. They took H.H. Hannikin's battalion out and put them up to Matanikau because they didn't think the attack was coming there. They thought it was happening on the Matanikau. So they took the gamble, the Marines did, to say, oh, the Japanese want to attack here. We don't think they were going to attack. And they left Puller holding a 2,500-yard line with roughly about 600 guys. And he had a 46-man outpost stuck out 1,500 yards. So the Japanese attacked that night, and they attacked with about 6,500 Japanese against this battalion. But fortunately for the Americans, the jungle which the Marines command had anticipated would cause unit cohesion to break up and funnel the Japanese into these killing zones. And plus the Marine artillery, which is the big that's Alligator Creek. But I guess the force multiplier of the campaign, the artillery was zeroed in there too. So if you go back to Basilone, I don't know if you can get back to the Basilone, Joe Foss, there's some good photos. Yeah, still Basilone, and then go to the I'll sing some more stuff there about Basilone, but keep it on that one because this is a good photo. I'll go back to, keep it there for a second. So Basilone, about 10 o'clock, Basilone's in the far left bunker with his 2 machine guns. 30 yards away were another bunker with 2 other machine guns. So he had 2, he was in one section. So about 10:20, a guy called Platoon Sergeant Ralph Briggs. And if you see the movie Pacific, HBO Pacific series, it depicts this quite well when Briggs gets on the field phone to Puller. And he says, I've got the whole army. I got the Japanese. He goes, how many? I got the whole fucking Japanese army coming around me. That's what he says. And Puller says, okay, we'll give you 10 minutes. Pull out to the left because they'd pre-planned this and come out through the army and enter through the army lines. You can imagine, and I've got some of the reports from first-hand reports from those guys in that platoon. Those poor guys, they'd already watched at least a battalion of Japanese past them. So they're coming out in the middle of the dark. It just finished pouring down rain. It was just stopped. They've got a battalion of Marines ready to go, knowing the Japanese are coming, ready to kill anything, on the edge. And they've got to move. They've got probably 1 or 2 Japanese battalions between them. So they got to try to move through. No. So these poor guys. Out of 46, miraculously, 42 got back. And
wow.
One got back 2 weeks later. Four never got back. I think maybe 2 or 3 are still out there somewhere, unfortunately, and unmarked graves. But yeah, so Basilone was on the open net. They had an open net field phone line, as you guys probably know what that is. So everyone, as soon as it rang, you could pick up the field phone. And sorry, it just reminded me of some Italy stuff we used to do with the field phone to each other, but I won't bring that up. You can take a field phone and some wires and it like kind of shocks you.
Yeah, you can make it shock them.
Yeah. I don't know if you people just get woken up that way. Anyway, I digress. So, the old war memories, huh?
Oh yeah. We had the same thing in Iraq. We had a mobile assault platoon, and a lot of times we'd run out and support and do different things, and we had that field phone there to ring, if we had an emergency or something come through. I don't know why we didn't use radios, but I guess we didn't need to. But
goes back to old school. It works. It's solid.
It works. Yeah. No batteries, just it's there.
Yeah. Well, that was their main on Guadalcanal. That was probably their main because the radios are crap, and even running operations in Guadalcanal now, modern day, with radios, it's crap. In those days, are really, really crap. So they relied on a lot of times runners, messengers, and mainly the field phone lines. And the Japanese did too. They learned field phone line. Anyway, the field phone line rang, and Basilone listened to it. I mean, it didn't go to Basilone. It was open net, so everyone could listen. And he said he heard Briggs saying the Japanese are coming. So he told his guys, get ready. He says the short time after that, and if you look at the unit reports and the timings, so Basilone says about 10:20. So it was roughly about 11 when the first contact happened to his left on A Company near Coffin Corner. And once again, I got the Japanese record, so I can track both sides. So the Japanese sent they attacked with a battalion, and they didn't really know where the Marine lines was. They were filling it out, so they were a bit lost themselves. And they hit A Company, and Basilone said they could hear A Company engage, and he started with his left bunker with him in there. They started adding some supporting fire. So I don't know if maybe a few Japanese were coming in, but they were supporting fire. He said then a short time after that, someone came in from the other bunker, his right-hand bunker, and said, the bunker's, the gun has been taken out and the guns are gone. He goes, what? And he says, exact words, what do you mean guns? They're busted. The guns are busted. So what he does, he grabs a gun with a mount, and the mount basically had a tripod. So this is kind of a gray area. Basilone in his statement said he grabs the gun with a mount on it. Now, like HBO series and some books and things have him just with the gun itself, which is incorrect. He had a mount on it. He said it weighed about 100 pounds. So to me, it's the gun, the mount, and a tripod. Or he might have just grabbed the gun with a mount with a pendle in it so he could run over, tripod's already there, and just slam it straight down in there and clink it in and go for it, which Basilone was a professional machine gunner. You know, he was a machine gunner in the Army for 3 years before he joined the Marines. So he knew he was a professional machine gunner. So he said he grabbed the gun and a mount, which makes sense. You just click it, pull it off the friggin' tripod, and it's already got the big mount. If you, and then you can run over to another tripod and shove it with a pendulum, shove it straight down and lock it in and start firing. I mean, that's what a machine gunner would do. So he says, grabs it, grabs two guys, Garland and Powell, which is a corporal. And he says, we make our way. Only 30 yards now. You know, in the movies and the books, I got him running hundreds of yards. No, you know, 30 yards away. So he's running, and he said he ran into a party of Japanese, about 6 to 8. And this is another thing where I think people take artistic license with. Basilone says, we took care of them. And then, you know, in the movie, they got him fired from the hip, and I don't believe that's occurred. He didn't say it occurred. The eyewitnesses said that didn't occur, but it looks cool, him firing from the hip.
Yeah.
That didn't occur.
The original Rambo.
Yeah, but he's got that gun mount on. You're not going to fire that thing with a gun mount on it.
Right.
Remember, he has a 45, and I'll talk about that in a second. You've seen his photos. And this photo, the reason I said put it up here, because he's depicting the actual Medal of Honor action here. This is a press photo later, but people don't know. He's actually depicting his testimony. He's showing it because he lays his 45 on the ground. I'll talk about that in a second. But he has a 45 with him. So I don't know. Maybe he's used his 45. Anyway, he said, we took care of him. They run into the bunker. He says, there's only two guys left. And that's a guy called Evans and Billy Joe Crupton. Both of them are firing 03 Springfield rifles, bang, bang. He said the rest of the crew, the wounded and the dead, had already been taken out. So that tells me they took time to move them out. So they're probably wounded, and they moved them out. And some of them actually died later. So they run over. He said Evans is wounded in the arm, screaming at the top of his lungs. And I won't say exactly what he said because it's probably not too PC nowadays, but he's basically saying, you know, Japanese, you bastards, come on, you MFs or whatever. And he's firing at them. He calls them a certain type of person. But anyway, you get to this. But anyway, he's firing at them. Basilone runs over, puts his gun down, looks at the other gun, the one that was one is taken out, probably a piece of dynamite, which the Japanese were using, or a hand grenade took it out. But the other one, he said, just had a ruptured shell in it. Ruptured shell. As you guys know, probably firing an automatic weapon, a ruptured shell is in the chamber, and it ruptured for whatever reason. He said the other guys probably got a bit excited and couldn't fix it. He said, and he's giving this testimony to this officer, and he says, well, how did you fix it? He goes, it's a ruptured shell. It took me less than a minute to fix it. So he probably went in there with a knife or something and popped it out, which you would do. Or might have used a ruptured shell extractor, as you know, on a machine gun. You can actually use that. Might have popped it straight down the barrel with the rod. But anyway, he said, I got it up and running. So he said he ran two guns. Both of them were 2 feet apart. He had a low profile tripod, and he's depicting it here, even though that's a 1919 machine gun. So this is a press 1944 press photo he's done. He's depicting his thing. But he had that gun in a low mount tripod. He low mounted it. He was firing from prone position. Not like he's seen the HBO series, not like another. He wasn't firing from the hip. He wasn't firing off a sandbag. He wasn't firing off a coconut log. He was on the ground, on the deck, just like this. He's depicting it right here. And he says, I was firing low. I would fire, and I'd roll over 2 feet and fire the other one. I would load them. No one was loading for it, and I would fire them. At the same time, at that stage, remember, he brought 2 guys over. He had 2 guys there. So it was 4 guys on both sides providing cover and fire. You know, They wasn't going, oh, my God, John, what are you doing? They're all fighting for their lives because the Japanese some are infiltrating through, but they're stacking them up basically on the wire on that Sector 3 trail. Basilone said he took his 45 and laid it on the ground beside him and as soon as I seen his press photo, I go, I don't know about this press photo, but he's depicting what he did. You know, there's his 45 and he's in a prone position. He's showing someone what he was doing for his Medal of Honor action. He laid it down. He said every once in a while, I said some of the boys, he called them boys, would yell out, and I would take care of them. So he'd yell out, and the Japanese behind him, and he would just take care of them. Now, these guys were in coconut log bunkers. Basilone doesn't say, and I can't confirm, or I don't think he was inside the bunker. I think because he's ran over and laid that gun straight down on the ground, because he said he says he moves the gun around. So I think he's laying right beside the bunker. He's got the other gun out, and he's firing in the open, because the bunkers are pretty small. And when the Japanese would come behind him or beside him, he said he'd use his 45. And they asked him, he said, well, how many? He should have had one shot left in the morning. So I don't know if he did a reload, but at least I know he's fired, 6 or 7 rounds into Japanese. But he's firing. And they said, oh, did you go, full bore or he said, do you fire all the time? He goes, no, I'd fire in bursts. Sometimes it was longer bursts. He says that we ran out of water. I don't know how sometimes misinformation, they urinated into things. I've never seen that. I've never come across an account they did that. He said, Basilone said they were dry as everything. He said they spilled the water once, it ran out of water, and the barrels were running red hot. It wasn't a constant Japanese flow. He said they'd come, and that's what in the Japanese records say the same. They'd come in dribs and drabs, like piecemeal. And they'd come in platoon size. Sometimes 20, 30, 40 guys they'd run through, and they'd just take them out. And remember, you got a 37 millimeter firing right beside him too, firing that buckshot round. You've got riflemen beside you. You've got 60 millimeter mortars behind you. That's another misinformation about Basilone. It was only Basilone and 2 other Marines, it's 500 Marines there. 500 Marines were all in a fight for their lives. So Basilone, what they're doing, they're keeping these Japanese from this main avenue of approach. They're stopping them. But guys on the, I think 100 yards down, there's the Marine sergeant doing roughly the same thing as Basilone. He died. And a lot of them had died. And was an Army guy came in later about 3 o'clock, kind of did the thing with a machine gun. He earned a Distinguished Service Cross. So there was actions, valor happening all up and down his line. These guys were fighting pretty hard. So at one stage, Basilone's running this gun the whole time, and 2 other guys get wounded, so he's only left with him and two guys. I think Powell goes back. They send Powell back to the other bunker. Billy Joe and Evans go out. They're wounded. So it's him and 2 other guys. He protecting his flank. So at one stage, he's running low. He only is down to 4 belts of ammunition. So he decides, and this is the most amazing thing about this action, he decides to need more ammunition. Ammunition points 150 yards to his rear. And I've found that ammunition point, roughly where it is. So instead of going straight back, Basilone goes forward of the line, because he knows Japanese behind him. He goes forward of the line between the Japanese and the Marines fighting by the barbed wire line, crawls down the barbed wire line, all these rounds going over him in the middle of like kind of no man's land, and crawls back into the Marine lines, crawls most of the way. Then he said when he'd come to a clearing, he'd get up and run. Then he reaches the command post. That's another misinformation that he grabs belts of ammunition. That's not true, because the place was muddy as hell. So him being a professional machine gunner, and he says in his statement, he had to grab the box. But a box, and I've checked this out, a box is like 100 and something pounds, of just dead weight. And apparently Basilone was a pretty strong fellow. But anyway, he said he'd run with it, and he'd come to a clearing, he'd crawl and drag the box back. Anyway, he makes it back to his guns, and they're still firing rifles, because he said they didn't fire the machine gun. Then he commenced firing again. So when it gets toward daybreak, they expect the last Japanese charge. He said that's when the Japanese charge at daybreak, but no Japanese charge. And so this is about 6 or 7. So about 8 and 9 o'clock, Puller walks through. And this is what Basilone said. Puller looks at him, looks at positions, and he said, "Nice work." And that's all he said. Some people go, "Oh, Puller would have said more than that." I go, "No, that's about it."
I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah, nice work.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah,
Good job.
that's huge.
It's
Getting an attaboy.
It's a big deal.
That's good for Puller. Yeah, good job. You're just, and he probably call him old man. If he call him with Puller, they said he called him old man. But if he said something like son or whatever, that means you're in the shit with him. You're in trouble. And that's another misinformation about Basilone, that he fought for 2 days with no water and there's only him and 2 guys left. It totally false. So about 9 or 10 o'clock. Well, sorry, I'll backtrack. About 3 o'clock in the morning, the 3rd Battalion of the 164th was been brought in. And they just dropped them in the holes with the Marines, with their M1 Garands. And the guys on the ridge said you could just hear the intensity of the firepower just ramp up. And even the Japanese accounts, I read the Japanese account, battalion commander said toward the morning, the Americans' firepower increased. The more Americans came in, they really seen that, especially the next night when they attacked. But anyway, they pulled Basilone in, they put him up on the ridge. He said but they put him up on the ridge. And so the next night, with the largest attack against the Army, they received some mortar fire, but they were never involved in no more fighting. So Basilone basically fought hard from probably about midnight to about 6 o'clock in the morning. So about 6 hours, period. And he was wounded, but he never got a Purple Heart. He was wounded we know it today as traumatic brain injury. He was, what did he say? He was knocked around a bit, I forgot how he worded it, but he was knocked around a bit. The Japanese were throwing dynamite. So what they would do, Japanese engineers, like homemade clay or Bangalores, they're taking, Basilone said they had sticks with dynamite on them, with sticks, and they were shoving them underneath the wire to try to blow the wire.
Yeah.
He said at the same time, they had the dynamite, and they were throwing them over the wire at us. They were hitting around us on the bunkers, and he said they was trying to get to the 60 millimeters, but geez, I was thinking that's a big throw. I mean, they wouldn't be that far back, but still. But he said he got a bit concussed or whatever. I forgot how he said it, but it knocked him around a bit for it.
You had a question.
So yeah, he burned his arms, but he didn't burn his arms by firing the gun. How he burned his arms, he picked the gun up like that. Imagine you have the hot barrel. You've got to move this gun. And another thing too, in the say the HBO series and other ones, that have him running out and grabbing people off the bodies and so he could fire. That's not true. Yeah. Think about it. A professional machine gunner or anyone, you're not going to run out. And the Japanese are right there. They got a Nambu machine gun on the other side firing at them. You're not going to run out with hundreds of Japanese running around like that and just start pulling dead bodies off a wire. And you can't probably pull these bodies off a wire. What Basilone did, and he says it in his statement, because his guns were so low and low profile, he said he moved the gun over. The captain says, well, the body's stacked up, but he says, my guns were so low, sometimes I couldn't see, so I just moved my gun over, which makes sense. I mean, if you're a machine gunner, you're firing, you're going to move stacking bodies, and you're going, well, I'm stacking bodies, I can't see, so I'm just going to move my gun over. I'm going to run out and start unstacking bodies in the middle of a freaking firefight. That's just stupid. Anyone to believe that?
Dave, you got a question here.
Sorry.
They wanted to know, did the Japanese try to coordinate attacks from east and west when they approached Coffin Corner?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the Japanese, they had good plans for their attacks. Some people think the Japanese just full-on bonsai charges and didn't think what they were doing. That's not true. I mean, they actually thought or tried to come up with some good plans. Once again, the jungle, communications, and sometimes infighting with officers cause uncoordinated attacks.
Yeah.
And so branches. If they could have coordinated, if they could have coordinated their attacks, even Merrill Twining, which was the division planning officer, D3, said if the Japanese had a good plan, if they could have coordinated their attacks on that October Battle of Henderson Field, he said we would have been in trouble. But they were just uncoordinated their attacks. And did the Japanese try to coordinate? They tried, but once again, there some elements, like the right wing element, was lost. The same was like the Battle of Bloody Ridge. One of the biggest elements were lost. I mean, this element here in the Battle of Henderson Field, this October battle, the right wing under Soji was going parallel to the Marine lines instead of going straight. They were lost. So the jungle had lost him. And I always said, if anyone doesn't think they get lost in the jungle, I mean, I could take 100 people, take them that same area in the jungle today, and say, you go 200 yards from point A to point B, and at night, let's just see how many of those 100 people get to the other side. No, you're all over the place. You're gonna be disjointed, and it's just hard. So that's the main reason they couldn't coordinate their attacks. The command, jungle, communication. It just that's why it went down to piecemeal attacks, and that's how the Marines could handle them with the Basilone. So I think we can probably move on to from Basilone. I could spend, as you know, a long time talking about Basilone. But yeah, don't get me wrong. His actions, he more than deserved the Medal of Honor. I mean, his actions. And one guy with him, Billy Joe Crupton, earned a Navy Cross, and Evans earned a Silver Star. So their actions basically stopped. And it's another thing. I'll say one more thing about it. One of the misinformations too about how Basilone almost single-handedly killed 3,000 Japanese. I mean, one, if you use your common sense, one man can't kill 3,000. It's not a video game. But they get that from his Medal of Honor citations, where it says he's instrumental in the destruction of near destruction of a Japanese regiment.
Right.
But if someone did a deep dive and looked at every Valor Award for 1-7, every Silver Star, Navy Cross, there's a number of them. I guess I can't say handed out or given out or received, or say awarded. That's the best way to say it. Awarded. They all say the same. They all say the same, that person, it was a team effort. And another thing, Puller, even though they didn't destroy a whole regiment, that's another thing about Puller. He goes, well, if it looks good that my unit destroyed a whole regiment and I put it on everyone's valor citation, how does that look good for us, for me as a commander? So I won't go there, but yeah, just because it says it on Basilones, read the others too. It says the exact same thing. So I think people take a lot of that out of context, and with any legend, it just grows. And plus the newspaper, at the time, because Basilone once again became like a rock star because he went on that tour, war tour. And then I call it the Jimi Hendrix moment when he died at Iwo in the day one, and that's then became legendary after that. And that's why Basilone is so I guess famous, that war bonds tour. And it's like almost if he didn't go on that war bonds tour, I think in my opinion he would have been roughly the same as any Medal of Honor recipient. And and when we get to Mitchell Page, Mitchell Page earned it the next night after Basilone, roughly doing the same thing, 5 miles to the east. And there's a reason I think Basilone didn't want to go on a war bonds tour, and that's the thing too. If you read some of Basilone's, I think that was the reason he volunteered to go back to Iwo. And you guys would really know this and understand and appreciate this, because you can imagine he's in Australia. He's with his guys. He trained with these guys. He lived with them. They were your brothers. Okay, you've got to go back to the States and sell war bonds because you're young, you're good looking, you're your first enlisted guy that we can has earned a medal, that awarded the medal, and you could sell some war bonds. And he didn't want to go. He was ordered to go. He's like, I don't want to go. Leave my boys, my men. I've trained them, and they're about to go into combat. So he goes on this. I mean, obviously he enjoyed it, rock star type tour with Hollywood and all that. But at the same time, his men are training, and then they're going to Gloucester and they're fighting and dying. So you guys know that the guilt, the extreme guilt, and there's no doubt Basilone would have felt that extreme guilt. He kept trying to go back to combat, and then Peleliu would have been a really tipping point for him, because as you guys know, Peleliu destroyed the 1st Marine Division, and a lot of those guys was his mates or his buddies. And he would have felt so bad. He would have been extreme guilt. And I think people who've never been in that situation, never been in the Marines or the military, especially infantry, don't get that. They go, oh, well, you should feel thankful that he's not in there with them. No, he won't. If they're dying, he's dying. He wants to die with them. If they're all going to die, he's going to die with his brothers. And you guys surely, hell, I know, get that, and I get it. And that's the reason he's pushed. And he had to go to the Vandegrift, who was the commandant at that time, and push for it. I got the medal. And they wasn't going to send him because they don't look good, especially with Basilone in the Medal of Honor. You don't want to send him in and die in combat. It doesn't look, it's not good. But he says, look, I want to go to combat. I've got to go to combat. And I think Vandergriff recognized that, and he goes, well, we got to send this man in. I mean, there's no way. He's probably dying inside.
You know, what's interesting is we just recently had a podcast with this guy, the Veritable Veteran on Facebook. He posts a lot of great mental health stuff and, you know, about guys who feel like they haven't done enough or, you know, getting out and your buddies redeploy and you're not there with them. But you know, it's interesting. And Neil, I can't remember if you were there. I feel like I was talking with Schwartz and them about, you know, you brought up the commandant, how he had to go to the commandant to redeploy. I don't know if you were there when the commandant was at the field house in 2006 on Lejeune, but Sergeant Shank had his little Basilone moment because this guy just kept trying to cross deck to another unit because he just wanted to deploy. And he was a great sergeant. Everybody loved him. Dude was crazy, but he awesome Marine. And the commandant's there talking, and he opens it up for questions. And I think Shank was the first one. They brought him a microphone. He's like, yeah, we just got back from Iraq. I'm trying to go back over. Like, can we make this happen? He's like, I don't want to be here in the States. I don't want to be here in garrison. I just want to be, you know, and it does, man. I mean, you know, like whether it's your buddies or, and here's another huge thing that it doesn't get spoken about. I've said it, is life is never easier than when all you have to do is survive. Like when we deployed and man, there weren't cell phone bills and like we literally had to worry about nothing but staying alive and keeping each other alive. And life is very, very simple whenever you're living that way. And it can almost kind of become addicting. You know, as much as I can't stand that movie, The Hurt Locker, because I think it's the biggest piece of trash that, you know, anybody ever made. Whenever old dude's in the grocery store and just looking at all the cereal, and you have to make a decision, you know, and then he ends up he redeploys. He's like, yeah, get me the hell out of this grocery store, man. I ain't trying to like put tricks, like all these different things. Just send me back to combat.
Yeah. And you see that with guys in prison or the police or anything like that. It's institutionalized. It's like, well, I don't like the outside world. There's too many decisions to make. I mean, I've got to deal with family and kids and bills, and there's just too much shit. And I'll just go back and 3 hots in a cot, they used to call it. Yeah. And the Marine Corps is just like prison anyways, you know.
It is.
Very similar. Very similar.
Yeah, it was that shared hardship, man, that struggle that you all went through together.
There
was nothing like, you were literally keeping each other alive. You had each other's backs, life or death, and there's nothing like that out here in the civilian world. You know?
No. And that's why a lot of guys have a hard time adjusting when they get out, and even in peacetime. You know, it's just that brotherhood, and then you just left with no support, and there you go. Yeah, you're on your own. It's like, okay, in civilian worlds, dog eat dog.
I've had so many guys come up to me and you know, they say things like, you know, they wish they'd have been there, or you know, they feel less of a Marine or whatever because they didn't go to combat. And you know, my comment's always the same thing. Like you signed up to be part of an organization that does war, that does combat, and if your country would have needed you at that time, you would have been the one doing it, like not me. So you know, like don't ever. I always tell everybody, don't ever feel less than, or that. I mean, and that's why I love what dude posted, the Veritable Veteran, and that was the first thing I brought up was, you know, people that feel like could they have done more. Well, you signed a contract to give your life.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it's peacetime or wartime, it doesn't matter because peacetime can turn into wartime, you know? So yeah, for anybody listening out there that ever, you know, thinks about that. So we get it. Like we get it. But, you know, I mean, literally you signed a contract giving your life away to an organization. So there's not much more you can do than that.
Well,
right.
It's like doing your will at 18. I remember I had to do my will at 18. When I come out of high school, they go, do your will. I go, okay, right. That's interesting. But you know, in the Marines, that was drummed into you. But all right, geez, we had a lot on the show. We're cranking time. What do you want to do next? You want to do Puller, maybe?
Yeah, I got the
Oh,
Chesty shirt on.
One thing I got to remember. Can you go back?
Yeah, which one do you want?
I've got to show you the thing about Basilone and boot camp, because people won't believe me unless we show it.
Is it a picture? It's a picture?
No, it's words. It's a little his statement.
Oh, his statement. Okay. I've seen that.
Basilone statement in the interview. You had it a while ago, I seen.
Yep.
Oh, that was some of that stuff is from the Basilone.
So
area.
Is it this one or is it different?
Yeah, that one. So the captain asked him, "And what sort of?" No, I can't even read that.
What sort of duty?
Yeah, okay, you can read it out.
Did you get in the Marine Corps? Where did you get your boot training? Basilone. I wasn't sent to boot training. Through my experience in the Army, they immediately posted me in the company.
Okay. So what that says is, and I've had but people go, "No, Basilone was a boot camp." I was told he was in boot camp. Well, I was told he went to Marine Corps boot camp too, but that's entirely false. Because Basilone was in the Army for 3 years. He served from 36 to 39, which is very common too. In those days, if you had that service, you didn't have to do boot camp. A lot of Army guys went over, and vice versa. They didn't, as you know. Now, I think Marines don't have to do Army boot camp, but Army has to do Marine boot camp.
Correct.
In those days, an Army would just go straight into boot, and that's what he did. He from 36 to 39, he was in the Army. And he spent most of his time in the 31st Regiment over in the Philippines. That's how he got his name, Manila John, because he's always telling stories, probably about the women, I'd imagine, but to the Marines. They said, "Oh, you're Manila John," and I think he did some odd jobs between. And then he said, "Oh, I'm going to go back and I want to go in the Marines." And the reason he went in the Marines, he said, he told the officers, he goes, "I was looking for adventure," but I think he told some other guys that he wanted to go back. Not to the Philippines, because at the time Marines had a regiment, the 4th Marines in China. So I think he was looking to go to China. He wanted to go back overseas again. Because, why wouldn't you? And that was the reason he joined. And they initially sent him to 1-5, Delta 1-5, or Dog 1-5 or D-1-5 as machine gunner. And because 7th Marines wasn't an entity, they hadn't formed them up yet. And then shortly after, when the 7th Marines formed, Basilone went over to 1-7. And D-17. So yeah, I just had to put that in there about if anyone says Basilone went to Marine Corps boot camp. No, he didn't. He didn't have to go.
Yeah.
So,
it's pretty wild.
And I've confirmed it too with his records. I've got his whole record book, and it shows him coming in 40, and one time went to Philadelphia or something, and next minute, bam, he's at Quantico where the 5th Marines were.
What's funny is he might not have gone to Marine Corps boot camp, but his niece did. She was just telling me how she went and did a 4-day in Paris Island.
Huh.
And they actually, Neil, you went to Paris Island. So, they have the different stuff that you do during the Crucible, right?
Yeah.
And one of the events, I can't remember what you had to do, but I remember one of the events was for Basilone, because it was all these Medal of Honor recipients. And so I asked her, I'm like, did they actually take you and you got to see that? And she said, yeah, they took me to that event and I got to see, the event named after my uncle. So,
right.
Yeah. I forgot about him not doing boot camp. I forgot about that.
Don't know that. Yeah. Most people don't know that.
I had absolutely forgot about that.
We'll go to Puller real quick. I'll talk about Puller.
Yeah, you got some cool pictures of him. I like the pictures of him out in the field.
Oh yeah, you got the one with his underwear, or
yeah. Oh,
that one. I found this location too. That was all Basilone stuff too, by the way.
Should be coming up.
Cool, man.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
So this is on the eastern ridge of what I told you before. The 7th Marines had dug in, and they were in this area from September to October. This is behind the eastern spur of Bloody Ridge or Edson's Ridge. So this is Puller, obviously, with the arrow. I don't know if it's like a wash day or whatever. They're getting chow, so they're eating. I've found this exact location.
Really?
It sticks out. Yeah, it's yeah. So he's got his. I don't know if they're white shorts. I think they're just white shorts. I think that knife, because I spoke to my friend John Hoffman, and John reckons it's because he's a biographer of Puller, and John reckons it's a Nicaraguan knife or some type of native knife he's got there in the back, small of his back, and he's got his 45, but he's strapped ready to go, and he normally carried 4. I've noticed in a lot of his photos in the field, he's got 4 mag pouches, where everyone else carried 2 mag pouches. He's got 4 mag pouches, so it's just Puller with his 45, and only Puller can be sitting in his underwear in the middle of the jungle. He don't give a shit. Like, no, I'm Puller. I'm the battalion commander. I can be buck naked with my H harness on or whatever.
And he either don't care that mosquitoes are biting him, or they're just not gonna bug him at all. Like, I'm stay away from that dude, man.
Yeah, because you go into so the banana war marine, the old breed person who was in Nicaragua and Haiti. But if you go to really deep dive into the records, like Nicaragua was they're more like advisory, more sometimes a lot of these guys didn't do any combat patrols, the Nicaraguan guys. But Puller was the real deal in Nicaragua. I mean, he was in charge of a company, and it's like almost like a response company, like the top company they had. So he had him and a few other Marines and all these Nicaraguan soldiers, and they'd go under like 30, 40-day jungle patrols, and he was involved in a lot of them. He earned 2 friggin' or what? He had two Navy Crosses from Nicaragua.
What do you end up with total? 6? Is that right?
His third one. Sorry, 5.
Wasn't it 6 total?
I got 5
total.
Yeah,
5. This battle involving Basilone, this was the only time he was ever recommended for a Medal of Honor. So his 3rd Navy Cross should have been, it was originally recommended for a Medal of Honor, and it got.
So what's the story? What's the story there? Why didn't it happen?
I haven't ever seen anything officially written down, but I've seen the recommendation. It came from regiment, and it went. It was approved at another level. Approved at regiment, and the division knocked it back. So I don't know the reason behind it. Might be, who knows? But Vandergrift knocked it back, so there might have been a reason. So what he did was similar to what Edson did in September to the Battle of Bloody Ridge. So anyway, but that other photo of him, Rupertus, is in Australia, and they're presenting the 3rd Navy Cross to him. So Puller did quite well. He's best in his battalion commander. That's his best role. Company and battalion commander was where he was always in his element. He did very well on Guadalcanal. There was one time in the second battle of Matanikau, the only really defeat the Marines had. He was temporarily in charge of 2-5, and they hated Puller they hated him after that, because the mouth of Matanikau, he sent 2-5 across the sandbar in something I call the reverse Alligator Creek, or the Americans' Alligator Creek. He sent them across a sandbar against fixed Japanese machine gun positions, 3 attempts, and they were getting wiped out. I guess he was mirroring Ichiki, which is a Japanese commander. But then Puller had enough sense to pull him back and try to call in supporting fire, but they were too close. But the next day, then Edson took over in charge of the whole operation. He was 5th Marines commander and did the same thing the next day. But anyway, but Puller, this is the only time he was ever wounded in his combat career, was on Guadalcanal. So November the 8th, the Battle of Coley Point. Puller's moving.
Is there a picture of that one?
I don't know if it's got Coley Point picture of that, but he's moving. They got the Japanese trapped at a place called Gavalva Creek. I don't know if it's there, but he's trying to move his command group. They can't see, right? So he steps out onto the beach with his command group. And the next minute, the Japanese, I don't think I put Gavalva Creek in here. That's Alligator Creek. But anyway, the Japanese had it zeroed in with a 75 millimeter direct fire mountain howitzer. So he fired one shot into Puller, or a couple of shots into Puller's command group, killed and wounded a few. Puller is severely wounded, goes down. His communicator's down. The field phone line, because they're running field phone lines, it wasn't running radio, it's been severed. He's trying to get artillery support. He's wounded, severely wounded. He's got shrapnel on his legs and arms. He crawls out, Puller crawls out on the beach, repairs the field phone wire himself, crawls back, gets on the phone, tries to call in field artillery fire, but the 10th Marines were moving. They hadn't set the guns up. Can't get close air support. So he tells them, move back in the jungle off the beach. So they move back in the jungle off the beach. And then probably about an hour later, they got artillery support. It's been set up, so they suppressed the Japanese. Sorry. But Puller didn't have an executive officer. I think he was a junior captain. But Puller wasn't happy with turning over the command because he's severely wounded to that until they get someone properly up. So he remained overnight in his hole until they could get a guy called Major Weber up from the perimeter, landed by Higgins' boat. Puller couldn't move. And they said, well, guys, the corpsman come to him. He goes, here's your medical evacuation tag. Puller goes, you can take that tag and put it on a medicine bottle for whatever. Leave me alone. And they said, we got a stretcher for you, Colonel. He goes, I don't need a stretcher. My boy's going to see me. I can't be stretchered out of here. So he hobbled into the Higgins boat and collapsed. They took him back to the field hospital. There they did some local surgery, took some pieces out. There was one piece in his leg, big piece of shrapnel in his leg near his femur. They said, look, Colonel, I said, we can't do this here. You got to get on the medical evacuation flight. We'll fly to New Caledonia. He told the surgeon, division surgeon, he goes, can I live with it? He goes, yeah, of course you can live with it. He goes, look, he says, when I was growing up in Virginia, I seen all these old Confederate veterans with enough Yankee rust in them. I won't bother me. Okay, whatever. And he remained. Now, the reason I'm saying this, you guys went to Peleliu, right?
Yeah.
And we won't get into Peleliu and the implications there, but one of the factors that come back to haunt Puller on Peleliu was this Guadalcanal wound.
I was just gonna ask you about that. Yeah.
Yep, became infected. His leg swelled up twice the size. I think one of the corpsmen actually, or someone tried to get some of the shrapnel out. I think it was rising up to the top, and it impaired that and along a number of other things. Impaired his judgment, I think. But anyway, that had a big play. And in fact, it probably saved him because if you remember on Peleliu, Puller wasn't himself as we know, but he wasn't up on the front line like he normally was. And a lot of times,
right.
Everywhere else, he was only 25, 50 yards away from all the fighting. In Peleliu, he's kind of stationary. That, some people say it probably might have even saved his life. But it got so bad when they after that week, when the First Marines, or what was left of the First Marines, got on the ships to go back to Pavuvu, they had to do emergency field surgery on him on the hospital ship, or hospital ship, but the transport he was on. They did emergency surgery to remove that piece of shrapnel from his leg. Because it was so bad, and that was how Guadalcanal came back to haunt him and Peleliu. That was a year. Peleliu was September 44. So that was
almost.
This happened in November, so it's 2 years, almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got
Neil dropped down and gave Chesty 20.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Gave him 20
What
up
an
there on
incredible
that
trip.
Yeah.
I
know he got a lot of flack for his tactics. He was sending those Marines up into the ridges. Sometimes 3-4 men that can only fit into like maybe a draw or something like that. It was so tight, and they were just getting butchered.
Yeah, unfortunately, I spoke on unauthorized. We did a series on unauthorized history of the Pacific War, which is a great podcast, by the way, and we talked about it. And we did 3 Peleliu episodes, and then we talk about a lot of the factors. It seems like Puller is the fall guy for it. Obviously he's to blame, but obviously you got to look at the division commander, and you're going to look at the Geiger, you got to Rupertus, it goes all the way up to the top. Because Puller said, if I didn't do this, I would get relieved. And when they landed on that day, they didn't expect that much hard resistance because Japanese never fought them like that. And then by the end of the first day, they suffered so many casualties. They should have been pulled out then, and they should have been pulled out the second day. But and they couldn't envelop. The only way they could go was straight ahead, as you guys know. You've been there. And by that time, they couldn't get any. They had an army regiment.
Yep.
They should have sent an army regiment in, but no, we can do it. We can do it. And
can't have help from the army.
Combat fatigue that played in a factor because that stage you had Rupertus, suffering. I know he had to be suffering from combat fatigue. Puller would have been suffering from combat fatigue, or what does they call it in these days? And a lot of them were. But there's a lot of factors there, so I don't really want to get into Peleliu. But yeah, if you do go to Unauthorized History of the Pacific War, that's, to me, it's probably the best podcast out there on the Pacific War. Seth Parrott and Bill Tody and my friend John Parshall, they do it. I was on a number of the Guadalcanal ones. So
that's one of the things we need to do too. Like, now you brought it up, I don't know why I didn't really think about it. Is bring. I mean, we've been to freaking Peleliu, man. Like, why haven't we gotten an expert on Peleliu to come on the show yet?
I'm not the expert on Peleliu. I mean, just a few out there.
Yeah. Well, then,
I could get you in contact with some if you need.
Yeah, no, we should absolutely do that. And then, the book that you recommended, as I've got a trip coming up to Bella Wood here, I Will Hold. I spoke to the author. He's going to be joining. I haven't heard back from Kevin yet, but I know you put me in touch with Kevin also.
Kevin Selden, a good man.
Yeah, I mean, there's just the people, and it's funny because somebody said something to me about like when did you become a World War historian or something? I'm like, dude, I'm the furthest thing from a war historian. I'm like, I'm just fortunate enough to have dudes that know things talk to me and get to share it with an audience, and it's so great getting to hear these different stories and talking to people like yourself. Like, man, we're so fortunate, then even having some of the World War II veterans come on and talk about, different things and their experience, like you said, and go to the original source, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's where you're gonna get the best information from. So yeah, we're super fortunate for you taking time on your chilly Sunday down there in Australia.
And the stories are important, right? The stories are important.
Yeah.
They need to be told, man. And there's so many of them that are out there that haven't been told. It's crazy to think there's so many more.
Oh yeah,
that are untold. More untold than told.
Oh, of course.
Well, and everybody has from the private all the way up to the general. Like, everybody has their own story. Like, your reality is your perception. All these different people had all these different perspectives, and Guadalcanal is definitely on the list of a place we need to get to. I know. I mean, yeah. So Dave and I were talking yesterday even about you got to do some time out in Iwo Jima.
Yeah, 89. I was that's when we did a pumper deployment. When I was in 1-5, was in Okinawa, and I was going to re-enlist on Suribachi.
Oh man!
Because I was one of the battalion scout snipers. I got to know the battalion commander quite well because I was his eyes and ears, and we used to brief him directly. And myself and Colonel Creed, he was a history nut, so me and him used to talk history all the time. And they couldn't get me to go to Suribachi for re-enlistment, but probably about a month after that, the 3rd Marine Division, because we're part of, as you know, when you're over there, you're part of 3rd Marine Division, attached. They had a battlefield study tour going for 4 days in Okinawa, all for officers. I was a little corporal then, but we had a lieutenant or something designated to go, and Colonel Craig goes, "Nope, I want Corporal Holland to go." So I booted this officer off. He goes, he'd appreciate it more, and he wanted to enlist, and we couldn't get him there, but I'll get him. I'll do this for him. So I mean, we went, I think, 2 days. I went to base theater at one of the bases. Wasn't Hanson is somewhere. And then they were giving you. I forgot who I was. I was a lieutenant colonel. They said, "You're Lieutenant Colonel so and so of this battalion. You study what this battalion did." So when we got to Iwo, we landed. We'd walk the battlefield, and they go, "Okay, Lieutenant so and so, or 2nd Battalion, 23rd Marines. What happened here? This is the punch bowl, whatever." And whoever was the battalion commander would come up and give his spiel. But what I found amazing, we had free reign. We walked everywhere. During the day, us being young, a bit, I guess, adventurous. Maybe because I was a corporal and the rest of them were officers, young lieutenants. We walked by these holes by the caves. The Japanese at that stage was uncovering the holes and they'd take the remains out, but leave all the stuff in there. and we'd seen one had just been uncovered. So we said, tonight we're going to go back in these holes. We're not supposed to, but we did. We want to go explore these caves.
Right.
Stupid. But it was so hot there because it's a volcanic island, and it's so hot, and all the vents have been shut off, basically blasted during the battle. So what we'd do, we'd suck down a canteen of water, and we'd go down 2-man teams for 5 minutes. We'd time it, and we'd go down. And I remember going down this tunnel and went straight down into a T-shape. And when you go down this tunnel, you could just still see the holes where someone's put a Thompson or something, fired straight down into the hole.
Oh, yeah.
T-shape. It went down there, then went straight down. And I just remember there was just stuff everywhere. And when we went down to the tunnel, it was cut out in these little sleeping things. In the mat, the straw mats were still in the little sleeping where they were been sleeping. Like I'll grab like handfuls of gas masks. One guy beside me grabbed a Nambu barrel, and it's just all kind of stuff coming out of there. Hand grenades. Oh, step over that. But that we got to explore like that. We had a free reign. It reminded me when I was there of a giant unpoliced field firing range. There was just shrapnel. There was bullet casings. There were bullets. There was. When we'd go there, there would be like a white pole stuck in the ground. And the guy said, I said, what's these white poles? Oh, that's an unexploded 16-inch or 14-inch round we found. Because there was a Coast Guard station, Loran, U.S. Coast Guard station there at that state, and some Japanese Air Force. I don't know if there's any questions about Guadalcanal, if anyone wants to say anything, because if not, we can. Someone's talking about MRE can shit pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're in a debate over here, which MRE or C-Rats, which has bigger shit. This got to be Marines here and over here. Talking about who gets the biggest shit with C-Rats or MREs. Which one is it? These are what you eat. I don't know.
I mean, I never had a C-Rat.
I had one once.
Those MREs, man. I mean,
all you got to do is drink the water over there, loosen you right up, man.
Yeah.
The cheese and the peanut butter would surely stop you up. Is any? I'm trying to think what other we can talk about real quick, because I'm conscious of time here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing I wanted to pull up for sure, like before we wrapped up.
You want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, you got your book out there.
Yeah, that's on pre-order.
Oh, nice.
It should be coming. It's coming out in the UK. And I'll tell you why. In August, in October in the States, and because it's through Casemates, the publisher, which is a U.S. publisher. And I asked them, I said, well, why is it coming out in the UK? It doesn't make sense. I know they have a wide distribution network. And they said, well, we do the printing in the UK. Oh, it makes sense. And then it takes 2 months to ship them over. So that's why they get the first release. So that's where my first reviews come from. So, yeah, it comes out. It's on pre-order now, and you can pre-order it through most of anything. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Canadian, the Japanese site I seen the other day. You can order it directly from Casemate Publishers. You just Google Guadalcanal's Longest Fight, my name, Dave Holland, and it pops up. If you want
we'll drop a link in this chat, but also whenever I get it up on YouTube. Which for everyone listening, hey, check us out on YouTube. Come over, subscribe to it. Leave comments, questions, different things like that. And we'll have a link to Dave's pre-order. We'll have a link to his YouTube channel also, because he's got some really great videos over there you can check out. And yeah, our guy Brett here, he wants to know if are you gonna be at the Library of Congress August 2nd? So what's happening
there?
What's that?
What's happening August 2nd, Library of Congress? I'm not in the state.
So they're actually I don't know, whatever you call it, some fancy word, but they're taking custodianship of Eugene Sledge's The New Testament Bible that he kept all of his notes in.
Yeah, I heard Henry mention something about that. I wish I was there. I wish I could be there. It'd be a good event. August 2nd, I'll actually be on Guadalcanal this year. I'm going back. I normally miss the anniversary week because it's a bit of a say Australians here, a bit of dog's breakfast there. It's for resources and everybody and their brothers on the battlefield. I like to share the battlefield by myself. And if I do take people over, I generally go in September, October. But I'll be in Guadalcanal that week, August the 2nd. I like the next question. What the fuck is a crumpet?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Thanks, Robert. I'm trying to think of a U.S. equivalent. Crumpets in Australia, so little you eat them for breakfast. I don't know. It's like a piece of toast, sweet.
For like a croissant?
Kind of the little round things, and almost like almost. They don't have a U.S. equivalent. It's like a piece of bread, sweet bread, real thick sweet bread, but it's round, and you put them in a toaster or whatever, and just put some butter and syrup or something on them. And it's like a souped up pancake or something. I don't know, a real thick pancake.
Medallion toast.
Try biscuits and gravy. Yeah, I grew up in Alabama. I've eaten a lot of biscuits and gravy. Yeah. I do miss shit on a shingle though. I need to make some of that. I do miss it, believe it or not. I used to get it in the chow halls. They used to make them for the omelet. I used to put them on top of my omelet all the time.
Eunice clearly showed up. He showed up late to formation, but the theme. I love the theme of the food, right? But yeah, Dave is from Alabama. He is from the United States. He's just when did you say you went back to Australia?
95. I've been here this year, June. In fact, 2 weeks. I'll be here 30 years.
Wow.
I've never heard an Australian Bama accent before, man.
Oh, it's a bastard accent.
Sometimes awesome.
I forget what's American and what's Australian. What is that? I think it's because I throw slang in, Australian slang, and I had to because of my real Appalachian, bad accent when I first came here. People couldn't understand me. So I had to slow my speech down. I had to try to pronounce my words out fully. And maybe that's how it morphed into Australian. I don't know. But if I start drinking, or someone told me when I'm around Americans more, it comes back. But if I start drinking or get pissed off or mad or whatever, I think the old hillbilly accent comes out. I don't know. It's whatever.
Scott Dave, have you been to the Yangs where they filmed the Pacific, or up near Port Douglas? That's where the Guadalcanal eps were filmed.
No, I haven't. I'd like to go up there. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. It's nice and warm. I wish I was up there now. Yeah.
Are you south then?
Yeah, I'm in Canberra, which is the capital city, which is between Sydney and Melbourne, southeast, up in the mountains. So it's like right now, it's like, I think my house is 720 meters above sea level. So that's why we do get snow. We get snow here. People had another guy argue with me one time. People don't have a lot to argue. They said, no, it doesn't snow. Because one time I posted some photos of the first Marine Division that came back, and they did their rest and refit in Australia. And there are photos of them in like thick coats and gloves. And I said, no, this part of Australia they're doing in camp. And the guy was swearing black and blue. He goes, I can't be Australia. It doesn't never get cold in Australia. And then I said, well, as I'm typing this, it's like I'm looking at frost on the ground. I'm in Australia. You believe me or not, it's not all outback or Queensland. It does get cold here. It's freezing down south. In the desert, you guys know, you freeze your butt off.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if there's any. Sorry, man. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know if there's any other points we want to talk about that I have. That I mean, once again, I'm looking at the time, and we could talk forever. But
I know that's what always happens, right? I mean, somebody was asking me. They're like, well, how long are? Because I was just across the street. The neighbors are having their first birthday party, for so I went and grabbed some chow, and then I was like, peace, I'll see you guys later, like for cake or something. And they're like, how long are you gonna be gone? I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm like, listen, it could very well go 2 hours. Like the same thing with Nick and Lars, right? Like you get into these incredible stories, and hearing getting knowledge and hearing stories that you never heard before. And it's truly something that you could just sit around and talk all day on. I mean, with that said, I think sometimes for the viewers and stuff, there comes a point where, I mean, a lot of people say 45 minutes is the attention span. We've gone an hour over that. So I don't know if we ever want to link back up again another time or something, and
I'm happy
dig into
whatever.
dig into a second half or something like that, because we all have lives to live and different things too.
What I try to do too, sometimes I listen to these like a podcast. Sometimes, like if I'm walking or whatever, then I'm not watching it visually, but I'm listening. I can just break it up.
Right. Yeah, that also. But I mean, yeah, so much like again, so appreciative for your time and linking up and coming on and sharing, the stories, especially the Basilone stories with us. Talking about all the different misinformation and just the little things, right? Like you hear people talk about C company and he was with D company or D company. Oh, he was with C. Just those little things, the clarification and and making those points. Like, well, hey, yeah, I mean, both are true, right? When you're with a weapons company and get attached out, and a lot of people don't understand how that stuff works. So
they don't know, and it's just you try to be patient and you try to work them through. But then some, if you actually show them all the evidence, and once again, but that's they have their own opinion, what they want to believe. Sometimes if they've thought this their whole life, and then if you present them with the evidence, they just said, well, I just don't want to believe it, and I can't believe it. Okay, well, whatever. Everyone has their own thoughts and opinions, but
well, then you've got the people who don't. I mean, you have the background, you have the Marine Corps infantry background experience. So, like you were saying, when you're talking about 31s, you're talking about the different guns and the intersecting fields of fire and all. Like you have another level of knowledge that allows you to understand and make sense of some of the things that are out there, and then share it and kind of break it down Barney style. I don't know if they use that term because Barney didn't exist until I think you got out of the Marine Corps.
Yeah, I know what it means. Yeah.
Right. That's for all of us ASVAB waivers, they had to break things down Barney style. So we have every once in a while you find a Marine like yourself that's really good at being able to do that and break it down so other people can understand it. And I think you do a pretty good job of that. And like I'll say it again, check out Dave's Facebook, check out his, Guadalcanal Walking a Battlefield YouTube page. We'll put a link to that also. And yeah, it's really awesome stuff. It's really great what you're doing. And we appreciate you taking the time for us.
No, I'm really enjoying meeting you guys and talking about this. Yeah, it's good. I like it. And
yeah, we'll maybe around the anniversary or something, we'll plan a part 2. We'll get back together, part 2.
I'd like to get into a pretty big event that happened with that battle is whenever the Navy got pretty much wiped out and they were left pretty much by on their own devices, right? The Marines were kind of surrounded and didn't have any supplies or reinforcements, and they were kind of just like, all right, well, are we expendable, or what's going to happen next?
Yeah, that's a myth. That
is.
I was actually on. Yeah, and that's something that we were taught in boot camp. They still teach it. How the Navy abandoned the Marines. The perception that the Marines had at the time, yeah, you can see how they thought they were abandoned. Because when I was in, we were always said, "Oh, don't rely on the Navy," because they would just leave your ass because of Guadalcanal, and that was still prevalent in the 80s and 90s.
Oh wow!
That didn't really occur like we were taught. I did a show on the World War II TV about the Navy, the myth show about the Navy abandonment. I'll just say this. I mean, that's a show in itself. But for every Army and Marine that died on the land on Guadalcanal, 3.5 sailors died at sea around Guadalcanal. So to me, that's not abandonment. I said there's 5,000 sailors still manning their ships at the bottom of Iron Bottom Sound. They didn't abandon anyone. They're still there to this day, manning their post. And I put it and that put things in perspective. I mean, they tried. They died. A lot of them died, especially in the beginning. And another thing too about the Marines didn't have supplies. Marines don't like to say they're at fault too. There was a lot of fight. This was the Americans' first invasion. A lot of lessons learned, especially logistical lessons. When they packed their ships, they tried to pack them combat the best they could, because they were shipped in Operation Lone Wolf to go to New Zealand for 6 months. So they admin packed. And then when they're giving the orders, no, we're going to turn around and send you guys. Because these guys only had 5 weeks boot camp, most of them, in that January class. They were going to do more training in New Zealand. They go, well, you don't get your training, you're OJT. Many of these guys died buried in the uniforms they went to boot camp with. So when they packed them, they combat packed the best they could. And then Vandergrift said, we're going in light. So, for example, everyone, only one set of uniforms, no sea bags, no tents. The only tents we're going to take is for medical. You're carrying, only thing you can carry on your person is enough what you can put in your pack. That's it. A lot of stuff was cut out to lessen weight. Now, the 155 battalion of 155s, we're going to leave them back because they weigh too much. We're going to take all our other artillery, which that was the game changer. I think there was 2 battalions of 75s and the battalions of 105s of the 11th Marines. It took them in. But anyway, so they're going in light anyway. So they probably about 50% of the stuff got offloaded. And once they got offloaded, because they landed at Beach Red out of the perimeter, and it was just a cluster. It's a small beach. And they just clustered everything on top. And a lot of this stuff was, they didn't have enough stevedores, enough guys on landing support party. They didn't have a landing support party then. They formed something called the Pioneer Battalion, 450 of those guys. And they were supposed to help with the landing duties. And they did. But they tried to get some of the infantry guys to come out and help us. They said no, because you got to remember, they thought there was 3,000 Japanese there with the reinforced regiment. So they said, no, we've got to protect our little perimeter beachhead. And we can't send guys back. So it all just piled up. Some of the stuff washed out to sea.
Right. I was about to say.
It was a mess.
That's probably what happened.
Yeah, and then once they took the airfield the next day, they had to move all the supplies into the perimeter. And that was one of their main priorities, because they said, look, this cluster of just giant dump, the Japanese, if they're switched on, the only thing they have to do is come and bomb that and take it out. That's more of our supplies. But when the Battle of Savo Island, which is the worst surface defeat in U.S. Navy history, they were supposed to, those cruisers were supposed to hang back to like day 4 or 5 to unload all the cargo ships. But once that covering force is at the bottom of the ocean, the transport's not going to hang around. Because how good are those transports, or how good are those supplies sitting at the bottom of the ocean too? So they pull it out. And another thing too, you read, the Navy never came back. Yeah, they came back. They actually came back a week later, because Turner, who was the amphibious force commander, said, I will return. Not a MacArthur crap, but I will return with some ships. So they had the little APDs, which are little fast destroyers that the Raiders had. They converted them for Raider transports. But they're running back and forth New Caledonia, running supplies, almost like the Japanese Tokyo Express, what happened later. But they're running supplies, and they were bringing enough like food for like 1 or 2 days, and they're bringing ammunition in and things like that. And that they, until the 21st of August, when they got the airfield running, 18th of August, when they got the airfield running, they brought the airplanes in. Shortly after that, the transport started landing. It still wasn't enough until the 18th of September, the big convoy came in with the 7th Marines. That's another thing, misinformation. You hear that, Basilone was Alligator Creek, or Basilone fought at the Battle of Bloody Ridge. I said, no, Basilone wasn't even on the island when all that happened, because the 7th Marine, which had the best troops, because they were filled out to go to Samoa to be the first to fight. And that was Puller, Hannikin, Basilone, Page. All of them was like, they took the best NCOs, officers, and jammed them in these regiments. But the perception is there. But once again, I did talk for 2 hours on that. but that is I don't like the abandonment myth, because it isn't an abandonment. It doesn't really. It's not good for the sailors who died. And just throw that stat out there that, you know, for every Marine and soldier that died on land, 3.5 sailors died in the ocean trying to keep the supply lines running. And if they abandoned someone, they wouldn't have happened.
Yeah,
It was
like you said,
August the 8th and 9th they're talking about. With mainly Fletcher and his carriers, and there's another story in itself.
Yeah.
I like how you put it, that, you know, they didn't abandon anybody. They're still standing, you know, they're still at their post at the bottom of the ocean to this day, you know, 80 years later.
If someone says, oh, they abandoned us, like, well, you tell the families that their relatives that's still at the bottom of the ocean, they abandoned the Marine.
Yeah.
They're still there, manning their post forever.
And it's just not like the U.S. Navy and Marines, and, you know, to abandon, you know what I mean? Like, it just
wasn't their choice.
It's probably.
And that really pissed off these some of the sailors. I spoke to a sailor once, and he really hurt him. Really hurt him. He goes, "Well, no, we didn't abandon anyone. We did our best. All of my brothers died out there in that ocean trying to protect and run supplies. And to hear that is just, he said, it really hurts us. I mean, you can imagine it would.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, there's a lot of it's like, you know, you guys know a bit of bravado with the Marines and, you know, fucking Navy and fucking do this and all that. But and it just built out of proportion over the years, you know, especially all these old vets sitting around, they abandoned us and blah, blah, blah. And we had it, you know, of course they had it rough, but, and they did feel abandoned, because if you read the accounts, the contemporary accounts at the time, they like, one day they're there, one day they're gone. But some of them actually say they didn't know anything. You know, I'm a private or corporal, man. I didn't know anything. And the Marines were stealing from each other. You know, how all the Marines had the bond, the brotherhood. You know, the 11th Marines went and raided the stuff at the ocean and formed their own little. And then once the Vandegrift and the rest of them got a hold on it and put them in warehouses and controlled it, you know, the Marines were actually stealing from each other. I mean, I read reports about how, you know, Marines are pilfering and stealing, and the 11th Marines, some of them were living a good life. They're like, you know, and the old thing about Semper Fi Mac, you would think, oh, Semper Fi Mac, you know, good on you, you know, like, you know, Semper Fi. In those days, Semper Fi Mac was sarcastic. It meant, I got mine, screw you. That's what it meant. They go, man, I didn't get my, you know, I didn't get those new boots. And the guy walked by, Semper Fi Mac, and walked by, like, you know, fuck you, I got mine. And that's
it's so funny that to this day, man, you know, like I was talking to Kim yesterday just about like the stories and, you know, how we're all similar just over the different wars and conflicts. And, you know, I mean, we say like there's, you know, like Semper Fi, fuck the other guy, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. That's what they meant.
Yeah.
Because, you know, my grandpa said Semper Fi, and he was real, you know, proud of his mate or buddy. Nah, he's like, fuck you, buddy. That's it. That's it. That's what he was saying. Not
the whole, there's only one thief in the Marine Corps. Everybody else just trying to get their shit back.
Right.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we could talk all day. Hopefully, people enjoy this. I'm pretty sure they will.
Yeah. That's amazing. All right, fellas. Well, everybody out there, check everybody out. The Facebook book pre-orders coming out. You've got YouTube. You got us on YouTube, Tales from the Corps. Subscribe so that way you know whenever we're posting up the videos. And feel free to comment on our stuff so we can get back with you and engage and hopefully answer some questions, share some knowledge about anything it is you might have. So, Dave, again, brother, Semper Fi, a good Semper Fi, a real one.
A good Semper Fi.
A heartfelt Semper Fi.
Legit, authentic.
Yeah. They're rocking the shirt. Good night, Chesty, wherever you are. Like, awesome episode, man. We greatly appreciate you. And Neil, for those again who didn't know, his internet troubles, so he's been sitting out there in the car so he could get some service and join us.
Where'd your buddy go?
I think he got tired of me, man. He took off. So.
Yeah, he's like, I ain't waiting 2 hours for this dude. What the hell is he doing?
Yeah, what's this guy doing? Just sitting in the car, just talking to himself.
Yeah. So. All right, everybody out there, again, thanks for your love, support. We love you guys so much. And until next time, Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
See ya.